Thank you very much to the organizers of this conference to be a part of it. We agreed on a topic. That is, I sent an abstract of a topic that is quite interesting, that is retroactive overview of the Macedonian independence, and it provides an overview of what Macedonia, what is Macedonia doing as it comes to the security policies of Republic of Macedonia, or safety policies. So, before I start, I would like to tell you an anecdote. Or maybe it's not a joke, it's more of a truth. When a person walked through the Macedonia, he said, "This is the heaven," and addressed God and said, "Okay, what does this country miss?" And God laughed and said, "Yes, this is paradise, but this is the paradise, but I gave Macedonia her neighbors, so it wouldn't be a full paradise." So 22 years later on, we have autonomy, independent state. And by its independence, it has the priority to identify the interests, the social values, all the attributes that are typical for a country. My paper addresses three spheres that are related to the security policy, and that is the inter-ethnic relations, Euro-Atlantic integrations, and the political instability. So the three most prominent factors that influence the concept of the security and safety policy, because we all come from different spheres. I drafted several general slides as to what is actually security or safety policy and what is the nature of it, but we're, in the interest of time, we're not going to talk about them, and we're going to immediately go to the characteristics which are important for our security policy. Macedonia as a starting point, and the role in creation of the security policy. So the national security and safety policy as a general concept is a type of a functional dependence in between various other aspects which are part of the constitution, which are part of the notion state, and other important aspects which are important for the normal functioning of a state. In Macedonia, we had a dilemma of whether the security policy should be a domestic or an imported aspect. For those that don't deal with this area, in Republic of Macedonia, we're in the second stage of the reform of the security and safety sector, and now we're in the stage of whether we're going to create an authentic concept of security and safety policy, including the local contexts, which are characteristic for the domestic state of affairs, or Macedonia in numerous occasions have had the opportunity to build this policy with partners through bilateral and multilateral cooperations who are a part of building of that safety and security structure, or those that directly were engaged into reinstating the peace in Republic of Macedonia and are directly involved into the concept of building of this security policy. So today this policy is actually an instrument of the state by the means of which, so it's not a political instrument, but it's a multidisciplinary instrument by the means of which the state regulates the internal relations in order to attain a bigger degree of stability and functioning. As the most important aims of the security policies are three, but there are at least 10. One aim would be the attainment of stability of a citizen, strengthening of the internal safety state of affairs through guaranteeing all constitutionally guaranteed rights and promoting the position of the state, a better position of the state in the international arena. So this is one of the identifying factors of why are we now in this position. So again, whether we should create our own internal autonomous, tailor-made concept, or we should copy it. From an aspect of security policy, it should reflect the realistic needs of the state in order to preserve the safety and security. There are general factors that influence the security policy. That's the history. We all know our history. A lot of historians spoke about our history, and that should be the starting point in formulating this security policy, complemented with the dynamics of the social development, the reform in the safety and security sector, and where should we position ourselves in relation to the international safety and security agencies. I had a paper when I talked about the division us and them, not only ethnically but politically, and it influences the formulation of the policy. Relations with the neighbors are, of course, one of the key influencing factors, and these are linked with regional relationships. Macedonia is a part of the North Atlantic community, directly or indirectly, has the need to monitor the occurrences in Europe. There were several important events. So the decay, defragmentation of the former Yugoslavia, the presence of the military forces in our neighboring countries, including in Macedonia, the Kosovo crisis, the 2001 conflict, the state of affairs with the approximation in the EU, pressures by the neighbors over Macedonia, meddling with internal affairs of a country, and the right of the Macedonian minorities in other countries. I'm stating this as one of the most important factors. Maybe this should be placed as a priority from an aspect of Macedonia lacking awareness or effort to build a concept or a national structure that will direct, further on guide the status of the Macedonian minorities in other countries. We had somewhat insufficient or timid attempts. Again, I would talk about the topic in Republic of Macedonia, and that would be analysis of the legal framework
of the security policy. So I give overview of what is done concerning the security policy. The conclusions are as follows. The process of bringing strategic documents is too long. There is no clear direction in terms of order of bringing strategic documents in the area of security. Very spontaneous, no concrete vision, not clearly defined national priorities. There are tries to define them, but no detailed explanation what is national identity. And as a consequence, we have national interests mixed with ethnic interests. So we can realize that in Macedonia political subjects are formed on the basis of on ethnic basis, and certain political subjects, entities create their demands, base their demands on ethnic rights. Also, one of the characteristics from the analysis of security policy is that there are overlaps of the competencies of certain agencies, part of the security system. There is improvement here, progress. Interagency cooperation has started to function. And the subject of coordination and sub-coordination is not precisely defined. Starting with what I said at the beginning, the security policy focuses on three main areas, main factors which define security policy: deteriorated inter-ethnic relations, political instability, and Euro-Atlantic relations. Overview of the situation, what happens concerning these questions. Still, retrospectively, 22 years ago, the government don't see seriously at the threats of radical Islam, terrorist groups, or threats, including certain political entities concerning federation or taking away certain parts of Macedonia. There is no legal repression for actions which are political, for which there are evidence, and for which normally should be politically accountable. There is too great tolerance for people who commit crime against the state, which is a twisted picture of Macedonia for what we should and what our government should take care of and take care of itself. So what is analysis of the past 22 years? Whenever there is a dispute, conflict within the state concerning inter-ethnic relations, we call a third party external factor. There are statements of certain foreign authorities, international factors, because we create the impression that we live in a protectorate. The situation has improved, but there is still space to improve. A speaker yesterday said that the USA, Turkey, and Israeli are strategic partners of Macedonia. It blocked the Euro-Atlantic integrations. I did a research in 2009 with the same survey, and also to September this year. Macedonia has no strategic partners in EU. So if we try to compare with all other countries with Euro-Atlantic aspirations, how many of them have strategic partners in EU, and how much that partner has helped them in their Euro-Atlantic integration. It's a fact that the name issue has security implications, which further deteriorate the political instability and inter-ethnic tensions, and we must admit this. Macedonia, and the block of the process of integration puts us into an inferior position in comparison to our neighbors. In the beginning, we had a dispute with Greece, and now we have the latest report implies problems with Bulgaria too. With this pace, in comparison to other countries, after Greece and Bulgaria, whether another problem factor would come up that would block our integration. Political instability, a very sensitive issue, which takes open discussion. There are political manipulations and influences on the security system. The three affairs with the affairs of 1902-2001, the bugging affairs, politicization opposed to professionalization. My impression of 1995, my institution was closed by a minister who wanted to invest more in horses and Ray-Ban sunglasses than in our institution. So the closing of the Faculty for Security, which he did at that time, caused serious implications in the structure of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. The suspension of the military academy also at that period, which seriously caused permanent consequences over the security system of Macedonia. All these situations and the lack of merit system, evaluation of real values when employing public servants, especially the provisions of the Ohrid Framework Agreement. Lack of long-term definition of interests and priorities of the Macedonian people in their own country. After the Framework Agreement, we learned to forget what is interest of the Macedonian people in their own country. Destructive political games with interests of the Macedonian people. Classical example is the Law on Territorial Division of 2004. I have 4 pages of recommendations and I'll be short. 4 pages of recommendations. My recommendation are de-ethnicification of the constitution, development of individual responsibility within all social factors concerning security, especially political entities and security system, implementation of the census, promotion of mechanisms for non-violent solution of conflicts, especially inter-ethnic, measures included in the Ohrid Framework Agreement, but the way of their implementation and structurization in these documents, stated documents, may be a subject of reformation, promotion of values such as and enabling rule of law, respect of principles of legal state and respect of democratic society.
Harmonization.
Diplomacy, recommendations, creators of domestic policies, recommendations that refer to general security challenges, and recommendations referring to security system. I shortened my presentation because of lack of time. I think these are good basis for what we should redefine in our security policy. Thank you for your attention.